Awesome. So fantastic to be here today with Dr. Glen Richards. So Glen's been a great advocate for investing in across the board in early stage businesses in Australia. He himself has kicked off in Townsville and started Green Cross, which was a fantastic success and listed on the ASX. Since then has also listed other businesses such as Healthier, and is involved in a myriad of other investment businesses or businesses that he's invested in across the board. And so it's great to have Glen on board with us today. And we're going to talk a little bit about, I guess, the current market conditions and any advice that he has in relation to how to navigate this a lot better. So welcome, Glen. Fantastic to have you on board. How are you going?
Yeah, great, Stu. Thanks for the invitation. I just reiterate it's certainly uncharted territories and tough times, and I've got some amazing companies and CEOs that I support in different businesses, and we can certainly talk about some of the things we're doing to respond to COVID-19. But it's certainly tough times, and we know that when we get a vaccine or some decent antivirals, that everyone's sense of humour will dramatically improve. But right at the moment, understandably, we need to simply keep our heads down and stay looking forward.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. All right, we'll kick off. So I guess the first question that we have, so what do you know now that you wish you had known early in your career when you're trying to navigate through turbulent times?
Well, we listed Green Cross in 2007, listed at $1, went racing through to $2, and then rolled straight into 2008, straight into the GFC, and we went from $2 to 48 cents. So what I deeply understand now is the investment community retreat. They definitely retreat from investing in early stage companies. They definitely retreat from micro cap and small cap and sit on cash. And then as times improve, they will come back into the marketplace. Capital will be there looking for a home. But right now, I think there's just an acceptance that it's tough, and don't try and raise capital for quite some time, because the investment community and those that have been around a little are sitting on cash, and they will come back. It's tough. But what I didn't realise was how bad we're going to be sold off in 2008 in the GFC, and we've seen that now with Healthier and People Infrastructure, two companies that I chair. They've been definitely oversold, definitely emotional roller coaster in the share market, but it will pass. Investors will come back. Our retail investors and our sophisticated investors will be back, and we'll get there. But the other one certainly is the importance of regular communications. And I look back, and I don't think we did that very well in 2008, because we had our shareholders watching our share price just drop like you wouldn't believe. We had employees wondering whether we're going bankrupt because our share price was going down. So that daily communication to key stakeholders, the employees, are vital. We're doing well. Our vet practices were trading quite okay. Numbers were off a little bit in the GFC, but we were quite solid, and our share price was the complete opposite. It was completely tanked. And what we should have done a better job with was regular communication, be it weekly with shareholders and probably and suppliers. But I think daily with employees is important. Definitely weekly and monthly communication with your bank. Make sure they understand how you're trading and how you're going, and definitely keep your suppliers in the loop so they know you're good for payment. You can pay your bills when they come and fall due. And right now with COVID-19, you're carrying rents. You've got to be reaching out to your landlords and saying, hey, we're doing okay, but where are we going to go if this gets really, we go to full lockdown and your revenues start to get the bad end of the stick. So those two things: capital retreat in bad times. I didn't realise it would retreat as badly as it did, and more regular communication. Keep your employees up to date. They want to know what's going on, and you need to be, and a leader of an organisation, be it you've only got 1 or 2 employees through to 4 or 5,000, you need to be on the front foot of keeping them informed with open, honest, and authentic where we are at to the best of our knowledge right now.
Like, how do you make decisions in relation to extending runway and costs in the business? So what advice are you providing to founders and CEOs that you're working with, and how to navigate this, I guess the cost related piece of the business?
Look, it's pretty important, and our businesses that I work with, it's important that you write across your numbers. I just get a little bit more agitated now that we are monitoring daily, weekly numbers, actuals versus budget versus reforecasted. And I've asked all our business to be reforecasting on level 1, level 2, and level 3 impacts. And level 1 is pretty much where we're at now, that we're all getting a willingness to stay behind closed doors. Level 2 is where the government simply starts to move a lot harder, as we're seeing this week. And then level 3 is, we can't go out. So what does that mean to cash flows? And so those KPIs, that monitoring of your revenues, monitoring of your expenses, and wargaming what if scenarios is pretty vital at the moment. And that's key to sort of understand when we start pulling deeper expense controls, anywhere from looking at our casual labour force, having authentic discussions with our full-time and part-timers to say, well, look, do we and should we start reducing some hours here and there? But our goal going through this is to maintain a ready workforce to kick back into full gear as we discover a vaccine or get the vaccine into the marketplace. So, you've got to remember, this is a health-led crisis delivering an economic crisis, and the economic crisis will go on for some time. We're talking easily a year, if not 2 to 3, by the time that the consumer regains confidence to go out to the marketplace and start spending reasonably well. So, you've got to be on that war footing. And unfortunately, cash is king. Those companies that are serious about preserving their bank accounts to a reasonable level, and you can't keep going on and on and on burning cash week after week, because you'll be out of business. And when the market turns, the entity must have survived. It must have survived so that you can kick open and kick back into gear or lift what you're doing as the marketplace returns to normal or a better place than where we are now. As I said, I can't see normality for some time, but at the same time, we'll be allowed out. Consumers will do their thing. Customers will want to frequent our businesses. We have to be ready for that. And it will be no good for business if they're out and they don't exist. So some of our businesses are on a war footing, that they're doing what if scenarios around how do we close up completely, mothball the business, and be ready to kick back into gear in 6 months' time or 3 months' time or 8 weeks' time. Other businesses of ours are simply going, let's start reducing some impact here. Let's make sure we keep our workforce intact. Perhaps we have to go from full-time to part-time or take some pay cuts for a short time, but we'll all still be here and ready to rip into it when we get back to it. So, you've got to be across your numbers. You've got to know where you are on what phase you're sitting in, and having people in the business, be it you as the entrepreneur or having a finance team, across those numbers, that revenue daily and weekly versus where you thought you'd be in your budgets, where you are against reforecast level 1, level 2, and level 3 is absolutely vital. And unfortunately, this is where leaders have to stay on the front foot, lead in a positive way, but also make some of those really tough decisions so the entity survives and still is there when we're ready to go again.
I think that's the massive point that we're talking to everyone. It's like, rather be more conservative now and have the opportunity to operate in the future, 6-12 months when things turn. But you can't turn that back if you allow yourself, too short a runway and you don't make those hard decisions now. So yeah, it's absolutely some great advice. Thank you. I'll move on to the next question. So how do you plan to keep morale high across the employee base? So you've managed obviously an extensive sort of employee base in the past, and now you're dealing with other leaders that are having to make decisions around their employee base and making sure people are still incentivized and keen to go to work, etc. Going forward. So I'd love to hear your view on that.
Look, I guess I'm in a very nice position this time round where my job is simply the support, the water boy, the coach, sitting in the background to help my entrepreneurs and my CEOs, and touching base with some daily, others weekly. But what we're seeing is some great leadership from my CEOs where they're doing daily briefings for all our employees, allowing easy access to information, making sure that they're kept in the picture around where we think we're at and to the best of the knowledge right now, linking into what government support's out there, understanding what legislation is changing around a whole bunch of things, including employment support, stand down provisions, loan relief, negotiating with landlords, all those things. So it's just keeping our people informed. You know, they want to know what's going on. And so one of our companies, Healthier Ways, is doing a daily briefing through a webinar where employees can jump online at the same day, every day, and just get an update and query the CEO on what's going on. So it's important to have those conversations. You know, we're all pretty nervous, and if there's no communication, then you will make it up as you go along. In terms of you know, your mindset wants to be hysterical. So it's important from a leadership point of view that our CEOs and our leaders are giving us daily briefings, setting everyone where we're at and why and how we're going to get through this together. And it's important that happens regularly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's interesting, like people have brought up that we're moving into what's called like a wartime. I think we, you know, bull run on the markets for an extended period, and now it's moving into, you know, you're basically CEOs are moving into what's called a wartime CEO period. Do you have any view, I guess, from you and how you've operated in the past, like any examples that come to mind of times that examples that you can sort of share that were really tough for you as a CEO running through, and how you dealt with it and what was the outcome in the end?
Look, we generally operate in a really collaborative environment. The harsh thing is, in a wartime and crisis mode, you have to move on the front foot and have a tight team of people around you to help with your decision making, and that's part of my job as a chairman and investor in a lot of these companies, is to be part of the mentoring network to give your CEOs and entrepreneurs some support so they can make those tough decisions that have to be made. So, you know, that wargaming, having a tight network of good people around you, but making tough decisions without, I guess, being too soft. And right now we are in wartime, and quite simply, you know, we have to make some tough decisions to make sure we're still in business, and we have to negotiate with our banks to make, you know, in a number of different businesses. I mean, to make sure the banks are going to be supportive, that we're seeing what the government are doing for us, all those things, Stu. And the reality is, you know, you move from being a more collaborative decision maker to being a more tough decision maker with less people involved in those decisions, and then you know put the policy in, and you know, certainly put the logic behind why that policy was made or that decision was made. So the logic is there, but you unfortunately have to be far less collaborative and inclusive in these times. You have to make decisions based on the information available to you right now, be it your revenue numbers, be it what expenses are there, be it how long we think before a COVID-19 vaccine will be made. You know, all those things fill in your decision making, and quite simply, you have to you know, accept you're making some pretty tough decisions, and there's not too many people at the table helping you with those decisions.
Yeah, I think like, I guess investors have a critical, and mentors have a critical role to play to help, to I guess support during these times, because I mean, we have a portfolio of over 35 companies and are trying to do the same thing, work with our founders, make sure they're not feeling alone at this point in time, so that they can, you know, I guess share where they're at with the company and make those decisions, and make sure they're not making, I guess, decisions that are out of stride, you know, with the general market and what's probably required of them. So on that note, probably the final question is probably around what's best piece of advice that you would give to your portfolio CEOs at this point in time?
There's probably a couple. One, they have to stay looking after themselves as well. They're going to be burning the midnight oil. They're getting tired. They're very stressed. They deeply care about the people that work in their organisations. They deeply care about their customers. So they also need to look after themselves, making sure that the way they conduct themselves is ethical, it's honest, it's keeping people informed. But they've got to make sure they're getting their sleep. They've got to do some exercise to clear their head. They've got to do their reading now, because there's a lot of good information coming through on operating a crisis, or what's happening in COVID-19 in other countries and how they're dealing with it. So there's some really good communication pieces and reading they should be doing. Also, just getting little jobs and tasks done, so you feel like every day there's a sense of purpose, and you're getting little things done that give you a certain feeling of, I've got that done, be it the most mundane, from Jesus, make your bed, through to come home and spend a bit of time in your backyard with your family, doing something together as a family. But the reality is they have to look after themselves, because they're making tough calls. But I suppose the number one piece of advice is this will pass. We will come back to a far more normal looking society. It will be a little bit changed. We'll be more prepared for digital and online activity, be it more retail, online, no doubt. Health and wellness will be more open to telemedicine and digital interaction. Education will see a lot more expansion in how we educate ourselves and skill ourselves up. Entertainment was already moving dramatically online. That will continue. But we are social animals. We do like contact with other people, and that will not change. So we will get back to a more normal looking society. This crisis will pass, and I can tell you it will pass when the World Health Organization puts their banner up and said, we have a vaccine that is effective, and we are manufacturing at a high rate of knots, or we have antiviral drugs that we can produce en masse that help reduce the effect of COVID-19, and we'll move then through dealing with the economic crisis and the recession that it's caused. But it will pass. We will get there. We just got to make sure you have hope for the future, and you continue to fill your day with a sense of purpose, and not just give up. And that's why all those little things that help you feel a little bit positive are pretty important. Talking with friends, talking with other colleagues in the same boat. If you're an entrepreneur or a leader, you're making those phone calls and saying, mate, how are you going? What are you doing? Can I help you? In my role, that's my number one job, is simply to be there as a backup to the people that are dealing with this in the front line.
Yeah, I think it's like acting as a sounding board, but just bringing the community together so that everyone's sharing their learnings. I think in times of crisis, there's no point holding cards close to your chest. It's like, let's all share as much as possible, help out as much as possible. And I think that, like, for the folks majority, we'll make it through and be better off for it. So I think if I'm summarized, it sounds like, there are going to be tough decisions to be made, but make them sooner rather than later. Tough times will pass, the sun will come up, past this event, and hopefully, we will work through it in the right direction. But you need to be alive to do that as a company. And so make the decisions that are necessary to move along through that, and then look after yourself, and you're not alone going through this. So everyone is, we're all part of this. No one's immune to this from a health perspective or a business perspective. And so how do we help navigate that and make sure that you're looking after yourself, mentally, physically, and keeping up the social channel, I guess.
Yeah, last little bit was a great tip I got from a Vern Harnish workshop, that, when you've got a problem that you're mulling over, the best thing you can do, apparently it moves that problem around from a chemical point of view and a positioning point of view. When you start talking about it, it helps you deal with how to solve it. So, communicating and talking with colleagues and friends right now is vital, so you can do this together and get through this together. But it moves it through to the frontal part of your brain, apparently, and helps you come up with more enlightened solutions. So, talk and network via Zoom and via telephone, that's pretty vital.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much, Glen. I really appreciate your time. We'll be sharing this out to the general networking community, so hopefully people take away some some of the great pointers from your, I guess your experience managing your own businesses and helping your investee companies. So really appreciate you giving us the time today, and look forward to getting it out and sharing this great advice.
Thanks, Stu. Good luck, and thanks for doing this.